You didn't stumble here by accident. Something pulled you quietly, precisely to this moment, as if time itself folded to make space for your arrival. You may have called it coincidence, curiosity, maybe insomnia, but deep down, a quieter knowing whispers, this is the signal. Because somewhere inside, you've felt it, that strange ache of being trapped in a timeline that doesn't quite fit. Days loop, dreams delay. The future always seems a few steps away, teasing you with its promise but never arriving. And yet, have you noticed that the more you chase tomorrow, the further now slips from your grasp? You've been taught that time moves, that you are carried by an invisible current from birth toward death, past behind you, future ahead. But what if the river isn't moving at all? What if you are the movement, the witness, the current itself? Imagine standing in a vast hall of mirrors, each reflection showing a different version of you, some broken, some radiant, some still becoming. You think you're walking through them, one after another, but every reflection already exists. You're not traveling through time, you're tuning through frequency. Scientists whisper what mystics once sang, time bends under observation. The clock obeys attention. What you call now is simply the intersection of your consciousness with one sliver of infinite potential. Shift the angle, your whole world reshapes. So maybe you're not waiting for the future to find you. Maybe the future has been waiting for you to remember it. Maybe healing, love, freedom, all the things you thought would come later are already here, suspended in the quantum stillness that exists beyond clocks and calendars. And if that's true, then time is not your master. It's your mirror, a reflection that bends with every breath, every choice, every thought. You are not bound by the seconds passing. You are the pulse that gives them meaning. The illusion begins to shimmer, and in this very moment, this breath, the timeline starts to tremble. You are remembering what you've always been, not a traveler through time, but the timeless one awakening. The illusion trembles, and what remains is reflection, your face, multiplied across dimensions. The mirror hallway stretches endlessly, each pane glimmering with a different possibility. Some versions of you smile with quiet mastery, others still hide behind the fog of memory. The air hums with a silent question, which one are you looking at? You see, the mirrors were never about vanity. They were maps, vibrational coordinates in the field of reality. Each reflection is a frequency, and every emotion, every belief, every unspoken thought tunes you to one of them. When you stare long enough into the reflection of fear, the world around you begins to echo that vibration. The conversations, the coincidences, even the weather of your days all begin to resonate with that mirror's tone. And yet, beside it, just a fraction of awareness away, is another reflection. The version of you who already remembers their power. Their eyes do not search the mirror, they command it. That version is not trapped by what has been, they are orchestrating what becomes. But here's the secret hidden inside this corridor: you are never becoming that version. You are only remembering which reflection to illuminate. The hallway doesn't change. The mirrors don't move. It's your gaze that travels the only motion that ever mattered. Think of each reflection as a parallel timeline already running, like channels on a cosmic television. Your consciousness is the remote. Attention is the switch. Most people never realize they've been flipping between channels, unconsciously reacting to fear, replaying old stories, mistaking emotional loops for destiny. They believe life happens to them, when all along, they've been broadcasting the very signal that creates the next frame of reality. When you understand this, the concept of effort begins to dissolve. You don't fight your reflection into changing, you shift your frequency until the reflection must obey, because mirrors can't lie, they only respond. And maybe that's what awakening really is, the moment you stop trying to fix the mirror and finally turn inward, realizing the adjustment happens at the level of light itself. You are that light. You are the projector casting reality onto the glass. But most people, lost in the hallway, try to run through it chasing the better version, thinking if they move fast enough, they'll catch up. Yet no matter how quickly they run, the scenery repeats. That's because motion inside the mirror is still reflection. The only way out is to stop, to observe. Pause here for a moment. Feel your breath. Notice how, even now, the mirrors shift. Shift as your awareness changes texture. The light refracts differently when you're present. What you perceive as solid, the past, the personality. The path begins to ripple, like heat rising off desert sand. This is where science meets spirit in quiet agreement. The quantum field, as physicists describe it, doesn't store matter moving through time. It holds endless potential states, waiting to be observed into form. You aren't a fixed traveler moving linearly. You are the observer collapsing infinite probabilities into a single storyline. Every decision, every micro thought, every subtle mood selects which version of the hallway you inhabit. So when you say, "I wish I could change," understand what that means. Your consciousness is already scanning for a new reflection. And the moment your frequency matches it, when thought, emotion, and embodiment align, the walls shimmer, and you find yourself standing in a new corridor, the light slightly different, the air charged with possibility. From the outside, nothing seems to have shifted. The same face in the mirror, the same furniture, the same sky. But inside, where observation meets energy, the frequency has changed. And that shift, invisible yet absolute, begins to reorganize matter around it. That's how miracles disguise themselves as ordinary days. That's how timelines slip. So the question is no longer, can I change? The real question is, which version of myself am I choosing to see right now, because all the mirrors exist, waiting. The reflections are infinite, but the gaze that's yours alone to command. And as the last reflection fades into light, the whisper of the next revelation rises. What if the very laws of the universe, the flow of time itself, are bending not outside you, but because of you? The mirrors dissolve into mist, yet their echo lingers a hum beneath the skin, a question stretching into infinity. That's when the whisper comes, soft and ageless, echoing from a century ago. Einstein's voice, carried not through time, but through resonance. Time is relative. Those three words cracked the spine of the old world. Before him, we believed in the solid march of hours, the mechanical ticking of fate. Newton had mapped the cosmos like a perfect clock, each gear turning predictably, each effect chained to a cause. But Einstein looked deeper, and in that depth, the clock began to melt. Time was not a river flowing uniformly. It was a fabric, pliable, bending to speed, gravity, and perspective. From that revelation, a door opened, a threshold where logic frayed and mystery entered. And through that door came the next revolution, the quantum realm. In the quantum world, particles refused to behave. They did not travel neatly through space, nor did they obey the arrow of time. They flickered between being waves of possibility and points of presence, vanishing and reappearing as if guided by some hidden intelligence. The deeper scientists peered, the more the floor disappeared beneath them. What seemed like randomness revealed precision. What looked like chaos revealed participation. The observer was not a spectator anymore. The observer was a participant. Now, imagine what that means for you. If observation shapes the behavior of particles, and you are built from particles, then every act of awareness bends reality. Every moment of focus is a gravitational pull on the field of possibility. When you stare long enough at limitation, The universe rearranges itself to prove you right. When you breathe into freedom, the same field curves toward expansion. The mechanics are invisible but relentless, like wind shaping dunes, like gravity curving space. And yet, Einstein's whisper carried another warning: relativity was not the end, it was the invitation. Because while he showed that time bends, he also hinted that time itself might not exist at all in the way we think. Consider this: if time slows near a black hole, if two observers can measure different durations for the same event, then time is not universal, it's perception, a construct, woven by consciousness to make experience digestible. Remove the observer, and the illusion fades. That's what the quantum field reveals. At its foundation, there is no clock, no past, no future, only potential awaiting collapse. Time, in this view, is not a river, but a coordinate system, and your consciousness is the axis. This means that your memories are not anchored to a linear thread. They are snapshots in a holographic field, vibrations that can be revisited, rewritten, or released. When you remember something, you're not opening a file, you're reactivating a frequency. And the moment you shift that frequency, the memory reorganizes. That's why healing can feel like time travel. You're not erasing what happened. You're altering the energetic context through which it's held. You're collapsing the version of the past that once hurt you and activating a timeline where that pain no longer defines you. Einstein didn't live to see how quantum mechanics would confirm this paradox, but he sensed it. He said the past, present, and future are illusions, persistent ones. Yes, but illusions nonetheless. So, when you say, "I wish I could go back," you already are. Every thought is a return, every feeling a bridge, every act of attention a jump between coordinates of potential. The field doesn't care about years, it responds to resonance. In that realization lies the quiet revolution, the end of waiting. Because if time is relative, then your freedom is not postponed. It's available right here, right now. And as you stand in this space between science and self, between atom and awareness, the whisper evolves into a question that only you can answer. If time bends to your perception, what new reality could begin the moment you stop measuring and start remembering? Einstein's whisper fades, but what it opened remains a trembling awareness that you are not a passenger through time, you are the lens through which time bends. The field doesn't move without your gaze. It waits, it listens, it responds. And this is where the paradox deepens, where physics begins to mirror consciousness. In the quantum laboratory, scientists discovered something unsettling. Particles don't decide where they are until someone looks. Observation collapses potential into form. The act of measurement births the event itself. Now pause, let that in. Because if the smallest building blocks of your body respond to attention, then attention isn't passive, it's power. You are not just watching reality unfold, you are instructing it. Every glance, every expectation, every subtle thought sends a signal into the field. The universe listens not to your words, but to the coherence of your vibration. Think of it like this: your focus is light, and light carries instruction. When that light is scattered, when you doubt, fear, or divide your attention, your world fragments to match. But when it's aligned, when thought, emotion, and body hum together in resonance, the light becomes laser, and the field obeys. This is the observer effect within you, the physics of prayer, the mechanics of mindfulness, the hidden science of manifestation. You've seen it before, even if you didn't name it. The day you stopped worrying for a moment, and everything suddenly clicked. The conversation that unfolded differently when you entered it with calm instead of defense. The opportunity that appeared right after you surrendered, the outcome. Those were not coincidences, those were coherence. Because coherence is not stillness, it's symmetry, your inner universe vibrating in harmony. Neuroscientists see it in brainwave patterns. Physicists detect it in quantum entanglement. Mystics feel it as peace. It's all the same phenomenon. Alignment collapses chaos into clarity. And once you understand this, you begin to wield the most overlooked technology in existence, your attention. Wherever it rests, energy crystallizes. Wherever it wavers, energy dissolves. That's why distraction feels like decay. It's not moral failure, it's misdirected creation. You can't stop observing, but you can choose how you observe. And that single distinction separates sleepwalkers from creators. Try this now. Take one breath, not shallow, not rushed, just one aware inhale. Feel the air enter, feel it leave. That tiny act, simple as it seems, is a collapse of probability. You've drawn your consciousness into the body, pulled the wandering beam of awareness into presence. In that microsecond, the quantum fog clears. The room feels sharper, the silence deeper. That's you, observing yourself back into reality. When you extend that presence beyond breath into your relationships, your work, your desires, you begin to rewrite the code of experience itself. Because life is not happening around you, it's happening through the lens of your observation. And here's the quiet key: observation is not just seeing, it's feeling while seeing. Emotion gives weight to perception. A detached thought barely moves the field, but a thought felt fully love, gratitude, awe becomes command. The field cannot resist coherence. It reorganizes around it instantly. So that when you observe from fear, reality contracts. When you observe from love, it expands. When you observe from neutrality, it stabilizes. Your consciousness is not bound by what it sees. What it sees is bound by your consciousness. That's why every ancient tradition, from Tibetan mysticism to modern neuroscience, converges on the same instruction: become the witness, not to escape life, but to reclaim authorship of it. Because witnessing is creation without force. Observation is intention without strain. And as you begin to live this way, to see with heart instead of habit, you will notice something extraordinary. The world starts to echo your state. Time slows in presence. Coincidences align. The external bends to the internal rhythm. That's not mysticism, that's mechanics. Which brings us to the next revelation, the one most minds resist. Yet all souls remember. If your observation can alter the present, could it also reach backward? Could awareness directed now rewrite what you once called the past? That question hangs in the air like static before lightning. Could your awareness reach backward beyond memory, beyond cause, to reshape what once seemed immovable? You may feel your rational mind recoil, whispering impossible. Yet, in the depths of quantum physics, the line between before and after has already blurred. In the laboratory, delayed choice experiments revealed something almost mythic. The act of observing a particle in the present determines how it behaved in the past. Retrocausality. They called it a ripple of awareness that travels both directions through the fabric of reality. It's as if the universe waits for you to decide how it should have been all along. Now, bring that home. What if your memories are not fossils from a dead past, but frequencies still vibrating in the field? Every time you recall them, you're not revisiting a record, you're reactivating a resonance. And the emotional tone you bring: grief, forgiveness, gratitude, determines which version of that memory becomes dominant. The past, then, is not fixed. It's fluid. It reshapes itself according to the consciousness that revisits it. Think of it like music. The melody remains, but the tempo, the key, the harmony, those can change with interpretation. You are the conductor. deciding whether the song of your history plays as tragedy or triumph. That's why trauma can feel endless. It isn't that the wound repeats, it's that attention keeps reanimating the same timeline. Your nervous system relives the chemistry of that old moment. Your body performs the memory like theater, and the field dutifully collapses that frequency into your now. But the reverse is also true. The moment you meet the memory with new awareness, with compassion instead of shame, curiosity instead of judgment, the field rewrites the code. The emotional charge dissolves, and a new timeline, lighter and freer, overlays the old one. The event may remain, but its gravitational pull weakens until it's no longer destiny, just data. You don't rewrite the past by denying it. You rewrite it by re-observing it, because consciousness doesn't erase it, recalibrates. Pause here, feel your own timeline ripple beneath the skin. There are moments, aren't there, that still hum like unfinished chords. A conversation you never resolved, a choice that still echoes regret, a loss that crystallized you into someone smaller than you were meant to be. What if those are not memories waiting to be forgotten, but invitations waiting to be re-seen? Close your eyes for a moment and locate one, not to analyze, but to witness. Breathe into it as though it's still alive, because it is. Now, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What version of me was created through this?" Feel how the question shifts the vibration. You are no longer the victim of time. You are the architect of meaning. This is the secret mystics encoded in ritual, and modern neuroscience is beginning to confirm the brain does not distinguish between past and present when emotion is engaged. When you feel gratitude for a future not yet experienced or compassion for a past once painful, your biology responds as if it's real now. In that way, you travel. You become the bridge between what was and what will be. You stop dragging the past behind you and begin folding it into coherence. And as coherence increases, the quantum field adjusts. Events that once defined you begin to lose their gravity. Synchronicities emerge, people reappear, opportunities unfold, each one a reflection of the rewritten frequency. This is retrocausality as lived experience, not superstition, not fantasy, mechanics of mind meeting matter. So, when you next remember pain, notice the reflex to tighten. Then, soften, observe without attachment, add light where once there was shadow. You are not denying your story, you are rescripting its vibration. The past isn't over, it's orbiting you, waiting for a new point of observation. And as you alter that orbit, time itself begins to obey a new command. Still, one truth remains to be explored. If emotion is the instrument that rewrites time, then how does its frequency sculpt identity? How does the feeling body tune the field to one reality over another? The air trembles with that question. If the past can bend under the weight of emotion, then emotion must be more than chemistry. It must be architecture, the scaffolding upon which identity stands. You've felt it. The gravity of guilt, how it slows time, the lightness of joy, how hours vanish. These are not coincidences of mood, they are distortions of temporal experience. Each emotion bends the perception of reality, curving the personal timeline just as gravity curves space. Scientists might say the limbic brain cannot tell the difference between a remembered fear and a present one. Both summon the same cascade of hormones, the same electrical storms. Mystics would translate that differently. Emotion is the language through which your consciousness instructs the field, and both are true. Because emotion is not a side effect of experience, it's the engine. Every frequency you emit through feeling becomes a tuning signal. The universe, infinitely neutral, listens only to vibration. Imagine emotion as color. Fear paints your field in dull gray, gratitude in gold. Each hue magnetizes matching events. people, and opportunities. The field simply reflects the spectrum you radiate. That's why identity feels so stubborn. You're not fighting habits. You're entangled with frequencies. The you who doubts, the you who thrives, each is a waveform stabilized by repeated emotion. Identity, then, is not solid personality. It's emotional momentum. You keep becoming the vibration you rehearse. And yet, the moment awareness enters that pattern, choice is born. You can slow the loop, observe the current, and deliberately shift its tone, not through willpower, but through coherence, the alignment of thought, emotion, and body into one harmonic broadcast. Coherence is the quiet superpower. It's not intensity, it's stability. When the mind believes, the heart feels, and the body relaxes into that belief, your field stops scattering. It sings one clear note. In that moment, you stop leaking energy into contradiction. Doubt ceases to pull against desire. Fear no longer drowns faith. Your vibration becomes readable to the field not as noise, but as instruction. Neuroscientists studying heart-brain coherence have detected measurable electromagnetic changes when a person feels genuine appreciation or compassion. The heart begins to pulse rhythmically. Brainwaves synchronize. The body's electromagnetic field strengthens and extends. That is not metaphor. It's biology becoming prayer. So, when you feel gratitude for a reality not yet visible, your body translates that frequency as now. The field, incapable of distinguishing imagination from embodiment, mirrors it immediately through circumstance and synchronicity. The future doesn't arrive later, it unfolds in response. That is why emotional mastery is timeline mastery. Change the feeling, and the timeline changes with it. But here's the subtle trap: emotion cannot be faked. You can't outthink the field. Words that declare abundance while your heart trembles in lack send a scrambled frequency, and the universe replies in static. The signal must be lived, not spoken. That's what embodiment truly means, letting the emotion of your chosen reality inhabit your biology until it no longer feels like pretending. Until the vibration of peace, success, or love is simply familiar. Pause here. Feel into your chest. What emotion has been running as background code? What version of you does that emotion belong to? Because when you shift your emotional signature, you are not layering positivity over pain, you are selecting a different version of yourself altogether. The self that vibrates in coherence with peace lives on a different frequency than the one bound by worry. Both are you, but they cannot occupy the same now. So, emotion is not reaction, it's selection. Each feeling you sustain is a declaration. This is the version of time I choose. And when that declaration becomes embodied, the world doesn't argue, it aligns. Still, a deeper mystery unfolds beyond emotion, because once the old frequencies lose power, you stand before a crossroads. The question shifts from what do I feel to what do I release? How do you collapse the emotional scaffolds that once held the old timeline in place? You can feel it now, the hum of emotional gravity loosening, the scaffolding creaking as light begins to pour through. The old frequencies start to collapse not through battle, but through stillness. Release is not destruction, it's deprogramming. Think of your old timeline as a pattern of light repeatedly projected onto the same screen. Every regret, every fear, every repetition of why me replays that film. You are not trapped in it, you're the projector. And the reel keeps turning because you keep feeding it electricity, your attention, your emotion, your story. So how do you stop the reel? You pull the plug not by force, but by awareness. Awareness is the solvent of repetition. When you observe without judgment, the loop unravels. The emotion you used to become becomes something you simply see, and what is seen fully, without resistance, cannot stay the same. This is why healing often begins in exhaustion, because the nervous system can no longer sustain the vibration of struggle. You finally stop fighting, and in that silence, the circuitry resets. The field has been waiting for that pause, for the moment your attention turns inward and the broadcast of pain loses its anchor. Imagine you're holding a rope tied to an old version of yourself, the one still vibrating in guilt, fear, resentment. You've been tugging for years, trying to drag that self into the future. Release is the moment you let go of the rope, realizing that the weight was never behind you. It was inside your grip. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing memory from identification. You can remember without re-entering. You can honor without reenacting. You can learn without looping. Here's a simple, radical truth. The past cannot survive in the present unless you keep reviving it. The field does not cling, consciousness does. So when you stop observing that version of yourself, the universe stops rendering it. And that's why, after genuine release, you feel lighter, not metaphorically, but physically. Your body's electromagnetic field recalibrates. The chemistry of stress subsides. The biology of old emotions stops echoing through your cells. What was once matter begins to dissolve back into potential. That is quantum liberation, the collapse of a timeline through surrender. But beware the subtle temptation to rush it. The ego, clever as ever, may try to release as another form of control. If I let go, maybe I'll get what I want. But true release carries no bargaining. It's not a transaction, it's trust. It's saying, even if nothing changes, I am free from needing it to. Paradoxically, that's when everything changes. Because the field, sensing your neutrality, responds with precision. When you no longer vibrate from lack, the signal of abundance can finally reach you. When you stop defending your wounds, healing rushes in. In spiritual language, this is grace. In scientific terms, it's coherence restored. In essence, it's freedom remembered. To practice release is to master stillness, amid movement to allow life to pass through without clutching at meaning. It's to observe the storm without becoming its thunder. You no longer need to fix what's fading. You simply stop feeding it light. Try it now. Recall one narrative you've outgrown. The identity that whispers, "This is who I am." Watch it play, but refuse to perform. Let it dissolve into pure awareness. Like film melting under the heat of the projector, you'll notice something strange in that silence. A new frequency begins to hum beneath it, a soft presence, unfamiliar yet ancient. That's not emptiness, that's emergence. The new timeline rising, patiently waiting beneath the ruins of the old. But to inhabit it fully, you must not only release, you must embody. You must give the new vibration a vessel to live through, a body that remembers how to carry light. From the quiet where release left you, something begins to stir not as thought, but as pulse. The new frequency you've invited can no longer live in theory. It wants body, it wants breath, it wants you. Because the field doesn't respond to wishful thinking, it responds to resonance. Embodiment is how you prove to the universe that you're serious about your new signal, not by performing it, but by becoming it. You've already glimpsed the truth. Consciousness selects reality. But selection without embodiment is like tuning a radio to a frequency you refuse to play. The broadcast waits for you to participate. Embodiment is participation. It is the translation of vibration into motion. It's when the philosophy becomes flesh. Think of it like software finally running on hardware. You've rewritten the code in consciousness now, The body becomes the instrument that executes it. Every gesture, every inhale, every micro-decision carries the new frequency forward into matter. But here's where many falter. They mistake embodiment for acting. They try to mimic the traits of their higher self, like an actor reading lines. Yet the quantum field doesn't read lines. It reads coherence. Pretending leaks power, remembering generates it. Because embodiment isn't fantasy, it's familiarity. You're not becoming something new. You're remembering the vibration you were always tuned to before fear distorted the signal. Let your posture reflect it. Straighten, not from pride, but from remembrance. Let your breath slow until it feels like gravity itself is listening. Move as if the ground beneath you is aware of every step, because it is. That's not metaphor, it's mechanics. Studies in bioelectromagnetism show that your body radiates measurable fields of information. Each heartbeat sends a wave of electromagnetic data several feet beyond your skin. That means your physical state is broadcasting constantly, shaping the interactions, coincidences, and opportunities around you. When you embody peace, you don't have to chase serenity. The field arranges itself to match you. When you embody worthiness, doors open without knocking. When you embody abundance, generosity becomes your gravity. You see, thought sets direction, but feeling sets magnetism. The body is the bridge. That's why spiritual bypassing thinking light while living heavy never works. The body is honest. It reports the real signal. So embodiment begins with listening to that report. What does your body currently say? Tight shoulders may speak of vigilance. Shallow breath, of control. Tremors in the gut, of stored memory. None of these are flaws. They are frequencies still echoing from an old identity. And the moment you witness them with compassion, instead of condemnation, they begin to retune embodiment. Then is the practice of remembering safety in the now. When the body feels safe, the nervous system stops seeking the past for clues. When the heart feels coherent, the field stops searching for proof. And in that stillness, your future self takes root. Walk as they would. Speak from their tone. Eat, breathe, and rest as if you've already arrived, not to convince the field, but because you finally trust it. The difference between pretending and embodying is trust. Pretending hopes, embodiment knows. Pretending waits, embodiment lives. And here's the most beautiful paradox: once you truly embody the frequency, you stop needing the outcome that inspired it. Peace becomes its own reward, love, its own fulfillment. The external begins to orbit naturally around the internal sun you've stabilized. This is the new signal, not force, but field. And when enough individuals live this way, the frequencies begin to merge. The personal becomes collective. The microfield becomes movement. Which brings us to the next revelation, the one that anchors this whole transformation. What happens when awareness, emotion, and embodiment unite into sovereignty of attention? What happens when you finally take command of the signal itself? The signal hums, steady now, clear, unwavering, alive. You can feel the difference. Reality no longer drags you, it dances with you. But this dance requires mastery. And mastery begins with sovereignty, the art of owning your attention. Because attention is not casual, it is currency. It's the most valuable force in the universe. In the quantum field, observation does not describe reality, it creates it. Your attention is the collapse mechanism, the silent command that decides which version of existence takes form. Every timeline, every possibility, every path already exists in the field as potential, but only the one illuminated by your focus becomes visible. That's why energy follows attention, and life follows energy. Most people never realize they've outsourced their focus. Their attention is colonized by noise screens, fear, comparison, and unresolved emotion. Each distraction siphons creative power, scattering their signal into fragments. The result: confusion, exhaustion, the illusion of stagnation. But the truth is simpler and far more radical. You are not stuck. You are simply split. Reclaiming attention is reclaiming creation. It's how you become sovereign again, not through control, but through clarity. You begin to ask, moment by moment, where is my light pointed? Imagine your attention as a laser moving across an infinite grid of doors. Every door opens to a timeline. You've been unconsciously illuminating the same few, the ones labeled doubt, delay, fear, not out of failure, but habit. The field, ever faithful, keeps rendering them as your reality. Now, when you pause, breathe, and redirect that beam toward the door marked freedom, something subtle yet monumental occurs. The universe pivots, the mirrors realign, the quantum code updates in real time. This isn't fantasy, it's feedback. Heart-brain coherence research shows that attention combined with elevated emotion creates measurable electromagnetic influence up to several feet from the body. You are literally imprinting the field with your focus. So, when you say, "I choose peace," and feel peace simultaneously, the field hears a single clear signal and reality organizes itself to comply. That's sovereignty. But sovereignty does not mean isolation. It's not control over others or resistance to circumstance. It's the power to remain centered regardless of the noise. To choose your broadcast even when the world screams static. Every master of reality, from mystic to scientist, eventually learns this truth. The external is only as loud as your internal attention allows. When you withdraw focus from chaos, chaos collapses. When you redirect that focus to presence, presence amplifies. This is why ancient teachings spoke of the single eye, the focused awareness through which light floods the body. Not a metaphor for morality, but a description of quantum coherence. One gaze, one vibration, one field. And here's the practical revelation: every moment is a test of your attention. Every reaction is a fork in the timeline. Anger feeds one universe, compassion feeds another. Fear reanimates an old past. Curiosity opens a new future. You are collapsing worlds with every glance. The secret is not to control your thoughts, but to witness them, to notice the moment your beam drifts and gently return it to the heart, over and over, until your focus becomes devotional. Attention is worship, and whatever you worship with sustained awareness becomes your world. This is why presence feels holy, because it's the state where nothing else claims your focus. It's not denial of reality, it's authorship of it. In sovereignty, you no longer chase time, you choose coordinates. You no longer fight circumstances, you select frequencies. The external ceases to dictate, the internal begins to direct. And when this clarity becomes collective, when millions awaken to their power of observation, something extraordinary begins to unfold. A new coherence emerges, not just within individuals, but across humanity itself. That is the dawn now approaching, a collective remembering that time. Fear and separation were never laws, only agreements. And those agreements can be rewritten. The sound of that remembering spreads quietly, at first a tremor beneath the surface of civilization. Then it grows. You feel it when strangers meet your eyes longer than usual, when conversations deepen without warning, when silence no longer feels empty but charged. Something collective is awakening. It isn't revolution in the streets. It's revelation in the soul. It's the realization that time was never the cage, only the classroom. Across the planet, people are beginning to sense it, moments collapsing, synchronicities multiplying, decisions feeling pre-written, yet freely chosen. They call it luck, fate, déjà vu, but it's coherence rippling through the species, a field remembering itself. We once thought awakening meant escape, transcending the body, abandoning the world. But the truth is subtler, more intimate. The field does not ask us to leave the earth. It asks us to embody it, to anchor timeless awareness inside time's theater, to bring infinity into form. That's what this global quickening is, consciousness turning inward through billions of mirrors, realizing each reflection is the same light. What was once individual healing becomes planetary calibration. Your personal coherence becomes collective resonance. When enough hearts pulse in harmony, the field reorganizes. You can feel it in the nervous system of humanity. Tension rising, illusions cracking, systems built on fear beginning to falter. This is not collapse, it's recalibration. The same way your old identity had to dissolve before a new frequency could stabilize. The world must shed its timelines of separation before unity can emerge. And though chaos seems loud, it is only the sound of old frequencies releasing. The darkness you witness is light reorganizing itself into higher symmetry. In this awakening, you play a crucial role, not as savior or follower, but as node, a transmitter of coherence. Every moment you choose presence over panic, compassion over control. You strengthen the new grid. The field feels it, others feel it. Ripples of calm travel farther than words. Picture humanity as a vast constellation of observers, each beam of attention a star in the quantum sky. The brighter each star becomes, the clearer the whole pattern grows. When awareness synchronizes across enough minds, linear time itself begins to stretch. Inventions accelerate, healing occurs faster, collective intuition rises. This is not prophecy, it's physics. The field reflects coherence exponentially. So when you meditate, when you breathe intentionally, when you forgive, you are not doing something small or private. You are altering probability. You are bending the trajectory of timelines. The collective awakening is not coming, it's occurring. Right now, every choice of awareness adds light to the grid. Every act of love anchors timeless intelligence into form. Every breath in presence rewrites the code of the human story. And as this coherence strengthens, something miraculous becomes ordinary. The sense that the future is no longer distant, that the long-promised world of harmony isn't someday, but already humming beneath your feet. You feel it when you pause the field, responding instantly, reality softening around your awareness. This is what the mystics meant by heaven on earth. What the physicists hint at through unified theory, a state where consciousness and matter move as one symphony. And when enough of us hear that rhythm, time itself becomes music elastic, luminous, alive, which brings us to the edge of this journey, not an ending, but an octave higher. Because after you've glimpsed timelessness, there's only one question left to embody. If time was only a mirror all along, what reflection will you now choose to live? The hum of awakening quiets to a pulse. The symphony softens, leaving one clear note: stillness. That is where the journey always ends and always begins. You've walked through mirrors, rewound the past, redefined time itself. But beneath every revelation waits the same truth awareness, steady and silent, observing all, the projector and the film, the witness and the world. Pause here, breathe once, fully. Let the air remind you that time was never outside you. It moves when you do. The seconds bend around your breath, the minutes follow your gaze. You are not living in time, time lives through you. So when you wake tomorrow and the clock resumes its ticking, remember the tick is not command, it is invitation. A rhythm you can dance with, not a leash you must obey. Each moment offers you a doorway. Which frequency will you choose to step into? If you forget, return to the body. Feel the weight of your feet on the ground, the quiet expansion of your chest. That is coherence, the living reminder that the quantum field is not out there. It hums within your heartbeat, waiting for direction. Let your attention be gentle now, not as a weapon but as a whisper. Direct it where you want life to bloom. Watch how reality listens. Watch how the field rearranges itself, tenderly, precisely. And as the final echoes fade, sense what remains: the unbroken awareness before clocks, before memories, before names. That's the real you, the timeless observer who has never hurried, never waited, only watched creation unfold in endless present tense. Carry that remembrance quietly. Walk slower, breathe deeper, live as if eternity were pressing its pulse through your fingertips, because it is. You are not chasing time anymore. You are shaping it with every breath.